going on, everybody? Welcome to the 20th, that's right, 20th overall episode of Comics and Chronic. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Iannaccio, and joining me as always are my co-hosts, Jake F.H. and Cody Walaka Cannon. What's going on, guys?
Woo!
Well, I'm excited, guys, because on today's episode, we have the honor of interviewing a writer-producer best known for his work on American Dad and Community. He's also the co-creator of the new animated series Marvel's M.O.D.O.K, which premieres tomorrow, May 21st, on Hulu. He is the mental organism designed only for comedy or comics or perhaps chronic. Please welcome to the show, Jordan Blum.
And by the way, honor is a bit much. I make, cartoons with dick and fart jokes. Like it's, I'm not saving
that's right up
lives
our
here.
alley.
Yeah, I'm not changing the world here, but it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I guess to get started, what we usually like to do is take a little hit of something and then jump right on into it.
All right, let's see how this 2-year-old vape that's been sitting here goes.
So, Jordan, what got you into comic books?
My dad, I think, he immigrated from Israel when he was really young. He learned to read English and speak English through comics. And he was obsessed with them. And then, there's just pictures of me in high chairs with they've just always been there. I don't know a world without comics, and then obviously, growing up in the 80s, I was buying the Secret Wars comics and getting the action figures, and the same thing with DC and superpowers. And, it's been a love affair. And then as I got older, I wanted to be a comic artist. So I tried to do that, but I just, I like drawing superheroes. I had no discipline. I didn't give a fuck about drawing cars and backgrounds and perspective. So that kind of limits you as a comic artist. There are some people who've gotten by being able to just do that. And then I kind of got more into writing. And even though my career, took me into animation and television, comics are, like I said, my first love. So getting to do the M.O.D.O.K comic this year was the ultimate dream come true. I've been waiting my whole life to do that and
that's awesome.
Write Marvel. So yeah, that's kind of been my path.
So can I ask, which came first? Were you attached to the M.O.D.O.K series first, the television series, or was it the M.O.D.O.K Head Games comic series? No,
we'd sold the show and had written the whole season, and we were just about to start production, and Marvel came to us and they were like, "Do you have any interest in doing a comic book?" And Patton had written a few before, and we were super stoked. And but our big thing was we didn't want to just adapt our show. We wanted to write the M.O.D.O.K in the 616 Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. So that kind of started us discussing how our show definitely, it's M.O.D.O.K and it feels like M.O.D.O.K, but it definitely kind of goes in a different direction. It's a lot more comedic and satirical, and we've created this family around him and built more of a sitcom. But wouldn't that be interesting if you tried to kind of blend those together? It wouldn't make any sense for the Marvel 616 M.O.D.O.K. So because Grant Morrison has that really cool take of Batman's history, it all counts, right?
Right.
Figure out a way to make this insane narrative fit together. And we wanted to do that with M.O.D.O.K, where that character, even people have called him inconsistent. There's times where he's this menacing supervillain, and then there's other times where he's more kind of a comic relief villain. And we came up with this idea that he's part computer brain, that every time he gets killed and destroyed, because people are always murdering him, people hate him, even his own company hired snake assassin people to murder him because they couldn't stand working for him. So he's died more times than Jean Grey, and he's coming back. and every time we thought, well, what if he's kind of rebooting? And it's that's why there's all these different versions of him. And then what happens if he suddenly has memories of this life in the suburbs with this family, the family from our show? It would drive him crazy because he'd be that's not, I don't give a shit about this. I'm trying to take over the world. I don't have a family. Someone's tampering with me and messing with my mind. And it would lead. It's that kind of was where the comic came out of, is what if M.O.D.O.K remembered our show and he hated it, and he was trying to figure out like why he had these memories, and it leads him on this kind of adventure through his own comic history, and it's kind of revisiting all these versions of himself and these characters he's met along the way as he's trying to figure out why this is happening. So it was kind of like a fun way in to be like, let's not do our show, but let's make our show drive M.O.D.O.K insane.
I really like the series. And what I really liked about it was that like you humanize M.O.D.O.K. And I feel like that was like a big part of why I liked it, where everything you're saying about him is still true, but I still feel bad for the guy, and I still want to know, like, you know, he's a villain, but like I feel bad for like the shitty life he's had. And I feel like you did a great job of just making me feel that way. Is that something you would like to see done to another villain in the Marvel universe or another character in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I love those characters that have that potential. The kind of weird Marvel oddities, I guess. You know, the ones that are in the bottom of the handbook that people are like, he's never going to be in an Avengers movie. You know. But yeah, you know, I think we had spent so much time figuring the character out and understanding him on the show that it was really easy to tap into that when we wrote the comic. And to us, because we had to figure out what makes M.O.D.O.K human. And you know, he's kind of this tragic character. He's like this guy who got experimented on and turned into a monster, and they were going to kind of enslave him, and he broke free. And you know, he's got this computer brain, and he's very capable, but he's very self-conscious that he's not the best villain. He's not Dr. Doom. It drives me fucking crazy. And, you know, he's got all this self-doubt. And I was like, well, that's super relatable, you know? Once you kind of tap into that, it's easy to kind of figure out who these people are, what their voices are, and why you want to, you know, go on a journey with them.
To keep going on that, so I thought it was really interesting at the end of, I guess there's an afterword at the end of the 4th issue of the miniseries, and you say that M.O.D.O.K, I guess it's written by you and Patton, but it says M.O.D.O.K is a lot like Batman. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Said no one ever. But yeah, I mean, it was us talking about that thing before, that he's been, you know, people say, oh, he's like inconsistent, or I like this version of M.O.D.O.K, I don't like this version. And, you know, I think the character, between the design and like the things we were just talking about, like what makes him M.O.D.O.K in both comedy and drama and horror or whatever, you know, if you get those things right, the character's flexible and he can be interpreted a lot of ways. And I think Batman is that too, right? Because you got like Adam West, Batman works, and you got, you know, Batman animated series, you got Frank Miller Batman, you know, you got Christopher Nolan Batman, you got Brave and the Bold, you know, Saturday morning cartoons. And then none of Lego Batman, you know, none of them are bad takes. They all feel like Batman, and none of them are wrong, or none of them are better than the other. You know, they're all great Batman movies or TV shows or video games, or whatever. And you know, that was our thinking, is that like M.O.D.O.K works that way too, where I was too old for it, but people said they grew up with him on like the Superhero Squad, where he's like a little child version, like
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it looks very it's those Marvel, they're kind of oversized, they look cutesy. There's a lot of episodes of that show.
I find it really creepy because they're like, are these like deformed people, or are they children? Like, I never got it, but he's in it, and people are like, oh, I love M.O.D.O.K from that, or like, I remember watching him in that Iron Man cartoon where he was the size of a baby for some reason. And like, you know, people, or the video game that just came out, that Avengers one, like, that's my M.O.D.O.K.
He's the main villain. Yeah.
But I think all those things keep the essence of the character, you know, alive. And that's why he works in all of them. And that's why people are attracted to him, you know? So I think that was kind of the idea we were trying to get across.
Nice. I'm not even sure. And I want to ask you guys too, like I don't even remember, like I just know M.O.D.O.K. I don't know what I saw him first in. He's always seemed like to be there. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not a character I ever like got into or know that much about, if truth be told. Like probably the most M.O.D.O.K exposure I will get will be watching your show. Yeah, like MVC3 maybe for me, honestly.
Marvel versus Capcom?
I don't know how much I really knew about him before that.
I had the toy, the Iron Man toy, which was great. You squeeze him and he shoots like a little bolt out of his head or something.
Awesome.
It actually shows up in the show. He's holding a M.O.D.O.K toy, and it's that one in it. But yeah, that Jack Kirby design is really what it comes down to. Like nothing else looks like him. and it's so it just stays with you. It's like striking, you know.
With the show, whose idea, or like, I guess, how did you come about to make it A, animated, and then B, the kind of animation? Is it stop motion, or
Yeah,
it
it's
looks
stop motion.
Okay.
So we, Marvel had asked us, were there any? They had pitched us actually a few ideas for shows and or characters they wanted to kind of put into a comedic show. And my mind just went right to M.O.D.O.K. And I've always loved like villains and the idea of like, their world, like the mundane life of villains is really funny to me, that you're trying to take over the world every day, but you like M.O.D.O.K's going to deal with all this like bureaucratic bullshit at AIM and like making sure that people are getting paid and they're not like running the company into the ground. He's got to pay fucking taxes for the AIM compound. And like some guy's complaining to HR and got his arm blown off. Like that to me was like so funny that it's still a business. Like this thing to work, it has to be run like a business.
Yeah.
So that like just the stuff that you didn't get to see, like the moment like he leaves the Captain America panel, the stuff that he has to deal with has got to be so frustrating. And then on top of that, like where does he go? Like does he go home? Like he has to go somewhere. So that led us to like, well, what if he goes home to New Jersey and to the suburbs and he's got a family there that we just never met? And after we started kind of asking those questions and kind of getting led there, the show just kind of built itself. So we always knew we wanted to kind of show the behind the scenes of being a supervillain, especially one who wants to be taken seriously, who wants to be an A-lister, but just can't quite get there and is super frustrated over it. And then we went out to a bunch of different animation houses and a bunch of people did tests, and Stupid Buddy did this stop motion test that just blew me away because it had like handheld photography. I was like, how do you even do that with stop motion? They built these motion control rigs. So it lent itself to what we were talking about of like doing a behind the scenes thing, because it felt like, handheld. It felt like you were there in the room with him, just watching these like personal moments with M.O.D.O.K, even though, and you can get really cinematic with it and get really big for the action. So I really, really liked it, but I was kind of unsure. I remember seeing Spider-Verse and then walking out of that and just being like, that was so cool and so unique and different. And like, you got to take risks, like it's a big swing to do stop motion, but it could really make it stand out and be different. And it lends itself to M.O.D.O.K because M.O.D.O.K is this big fucking head with arms and legs. He's like floating around, and you're like, to see that like move around in space is awesome.
That's hilarious.
And it looks like Jack Kirby, come to life. So it ended up being like the perfect way to go. But for me, my background is in 2D animation, so I had to kind of learn from scratch, like how to write for this and how to edit this. It was like everything I knew I had to kind of throw out and learn this new process.
Nice.
It's
cool. It looks almost like Robot Chicken kind of.
Yeah.
Well, Stupid Buddy is the same people who made Robot Chicken.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so all those guys are producers on as well, but they were like, we don't want it to be like, because Robot Chicken's supposed to look like toys, right? Like it's supposed to almost kind of look shitty on purpose, in a way. Like the toys would just come to life and they put sticker mouths on them, and they're like, we don't want it. We want this to have its own identity. So like our show, I think, is a lot glossier. It's a lot closer to like a Leica movie, in the style that it's done. And the puppets, are built differently, and they have these like, M.O.D.O.K has actual practical mouths that are swapped in and out, and the other puppets have digital mouths that just look kind of like photoreal. And I think they wanted it to, obviously a lot of stop motion, you're gonna think Robot Chicken, but I think when you actually look at it a little deeper, you're like, oh wow, this is something different. They're pushing the boundaries, I think, on a big cinematic scale, like what they can do in stop motion.
But even in terms of like content, like it seems like this is going to be obviously different than any other Marvel series we've seen so far. Like I haven't seen it yet, but if I could compare something in my head, it would be the Harley Quinn series on DC, where it's like a more adult take on a character that isn't necessarily, isn't necessarily adult, but did you kind of have free reign to do whatever you want with the character? Was there certain limits?
Yeah, Marvel shockingly was like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, really? Well, I think they knew we weren't going to like break the toys, like they gave us Iron Man, and, they can talk the way real people talk. And, obviously we added a lot more stuff that you wouldn't see in Marvel movies because it's an adult show. But we weren't going to do something where like Iron Man just like massacres a bunch of innocent people, you know, like M.O.D.O.K can, no problem.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, we were respectful while still being like, these have to be funny and be interpretations and work for the show we're doing. And you know, I think we found it. Like, yeah, like it's a super violent show, and we get into M.O.D.O.K's sex life, and we get into like all these things that like would not be in a more family. That's why we're on Hulu, right? Like that's why we're not on Disney Plus in the US. Outside the US, we're on Disney Plus Star, which is like a combo thing. But you know, they were like, we want something that feels like Archer or Rick and Morty, or you know, and they're like, and so do that. Like, we're not going to hold you back at all.
Nice. That's awesome.
Is Patton like, was he the first choice for M.O.D.O.K, or is he like comes with the show? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, he had it in his contract from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that if M.O.D.O.K ever comes up, he has to. He and I had worked together previously on a pilot and had kind of remained friends. We go, you know, the comic store every Wednesday and see him there. And that dude has great recommendations too. He's turned me on to a lot of good books that I never would have found.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, if I just may interrupt for 1 second. Which comic book store do you go to?
Golden Apple.
Oh, okay, yeah, on Melrose. I go to Pulp Fiction on Sepulveda.
Love Pulp Fiction. I just
That
went there
place
today.
is awesome. Nice. I was there
Fantastic
yesterday.
store. Yeah, fantastic. Like the best trade selection I've ever seen.
Oh my god. Yeah, no.
Good back issues. Love that place. That one's really close to my home. I have like, I don't know, you guys have this, like, I get into relationships with, like, I almost treat my comic store relationships like almost more seriously than like some of the like dating relationships I have. Where, like, even like when they become inconvenient, you're like, I can't turn my back on them. Like I remember in college, I was still having my books shipped from New York. I went to school in Ohio because I didn't have the heart to like break up with them, even though I was like secretly on the side going in to the local comic store and like starting to buy stuff there, and I felt like I was cheating on them, and I was just doubling the amount of comics I was buying and like going broke. And then like I had the same thing when I moved up to LA. I was having my Ohio one then shipped there, like I'd switched over. And it's similar with Golden Apple, who's been is such a good store. But I used to live in Hollywood, so I've been going there for years, and I work, you know, usually in that area, so it wasn't that inconvenient to head over there, except during the pandemic where I'm driving like a half hour to go get my comics. But you know, I'm loyal, and we did a signing with them. They're going to do a whole big M.O.D.O.K thing, so I have a good relationship with them. But at the same time, I'm always like, what's this one on Sepulveda over here? And, you know, let me dig around here, and then I just end up buying stuff everywhere, and all my money goes to comics. But but anyway, sorry. So Patton and I, you know, go there. Patton's like the real deal, you know, like up on everything with his comics continuity and all that. And, you know, I had come with just kind of the basics of this idea and went to him, and I was like, you want to do this with me? And then we just built the show together, you know, always with the intention that he was going to play M.O.D.O.K. It's like so perfect. You know?
So perfect.
He said, he's like, it's the role I was unfortunately born to play. You know? like there was art of him as M.O.D.O.K. for years before this ever got announced. Like before
like
we even
fan
went into
art
the
or actual
fan
like,
art.
Conceptual art. Oh, nice.
Yeah, no. Fans just were like, "You're M.O.D.O.K," and he's like, "Great." And we just draw his face as M.O.D.O.K. So he showed me, and he's like, "I already have art of me. We could take this into the pitch," you know. So I thought that was really, really fun, and yeah, and it was great because he was in the room, and you know, you'd be like, "Oh, I don't know, is this line gonna work?" And then he would just say it as M.O.D.O.K. Like, yeah, okay, M.O.D.O.K's right here, and that made us all laugh. That's perfect. That's good, you know. It was really easy to write with M.O.D.O.K. in the room.
Nice.
That's awesome. So even John Hamm, I thought that was a great, like, I would love to see him as a live action Iron Man. You know, the cast could work, it seems like it could work equally as live action if you had to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out that way. Yeah, with John Hamm, we were like, okay, you know, they just killed Robert Downey Jr. We can't get him. You know, who do we do? And we were like talking, we're like, who if like people fan cast? Like, wouldn't that be really funny if we did that? You know, and we were. Pat was like, should we go after Tom Cruise? I was like, all right, let's be a little realistic. He was supposed to play him right in the 90s. Yeah. He was cast as Tony Stark in the 90s.
Oh man.
And they were developing it, and it just never happened. And then I was like, oh, everyone's like speculating, like, John Hamm could be, if they rebooted, it would be John Hamm or something like that. And like, I think John Hamm's one of the funniest dudes ever. Like, I love him in Bridesmaids. And like, I feel like he's just as good of a comedic actor as he's a dramatic actor. Also, weirdly enough, like, Mad Men was the most referenced show in our writer's room. Like, it wasn't a comedy. We were just always talking about Mad Men the whole time. I don't know why. And actually, you'll see there's stuff like worked in for Mad Men, which is funny. In like the same episodes that John Hamm's in. But
nice.
we were just huge fans of him, and Patton's friends with him, and he was totally down. And he's perfect because you're like, oh yeah, John Hamm's Tony Stark. That makes so much sense. And he kind of brought his own energy to it, and kind of played him a little more of like he's just kind of over it with M.O.D.O.K. And M.O.D.O.K's like, it's a very one-sided relationship. Where I was like, we're arch nemesis, right? And he's like, I don't know, man. Don't drag me down with you. So he was so funny, and he just wanted to, he was in the booth. He just wanted to play and have fun, and he was a blast to work with, and he's so good in the show. So I think we ended up with the perfect person for Iron Man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to check this out.
Are there going to be any because now you're saying it's like stop motion puppetry, and I'm just trying to picture like these almost like cinematic fight scenes. Can we expect some like hilarious puppetry, just like big battles?
Oh yeah, if you look it up after this, we released this mad scientist fight between M.O.D.O.K. and this other AIM scientist supreme, Monica Rappaccini, who's kind of his rival at work. And it's them going nuts, like using every possible, like she's, turning him into a monkey. He's like de-evolving, and he's shooting her, and she's turning into a baby, and so she's like pile driving a monkey. And there's like ice guns, and she throws a 2D bomb at him, and he turns into a pixelated version, and he pulls her into it. We do like a whole Street Fighter fight that they do as like pixel. Like, we went all out, and that's a fun clip. That'll kind of give you a sense of what we're going for when they do battle. They battle hard.
Nice. I love that scene in the in one of the Head Games issues. No, in the first issue, where you see M.O.D.O.K. come out like with all the weapons. He's dressed as Ant-Man.
Yeah,
I think he has like a Spider-Man like gauntlet thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of inspired by this fight. Is like, let's do the comic book version of that, because I love him and Monica fighting each other. So all the ideas that we didn't use in the show, we did in the comic, where she's like Hulk. She shoots herself with a banner boost, and she gets the big Hulk arm.
Yeah,
and punches him through like multiple floors, and he's using like the claws, sonar thing against her. It was really fun. Like, we told Scott, we're like, load him up with everything that you can think of. So he was like Wolverine claws, and just seeing a giant head like armed to the teeth with Marvel Universe tech was really funny to us.
Yeah, I loved it.
So you wrote for film first before you started writing for comic books?
Well, yeah, I tried to kind of do feature stuff, and that's kind of how I broke in. But one of those things where like nothing went, and then I started writing on American Dad. Is kind of where I cut my teeth, and that's an amazing place to work. And then after that, I went and did a season of Community for NBC, and then went back to American Dad until M.O.D.O.K.
So for Community, were you the was like the Meow Meow Beans episode? Does that come from your mind, or were you just like a writer on the team at the time?
Yeah, it was. I think like the idea for the episode was Dan's idea, and then we would kind of go off and break the story with a few other writers, and he'd kind of come and give input, and then he rewrites a lot, so he kind of took our script and put his spin on it. But it's like he's a genius. They're like, this is awesome. And then it was just so fun to like be on set for that and get to work with those actors. And it was a really talented cast and crew to get to work with. And it was a blast. I'm glad I did it though earlier in my career, because those hours were killer. But I was sleeping at Paramount under my desk for like weeks. But it was just kind of, that's the energy of the show. And you work all night and you run to set, and it's fun. It was a blast.
Nice. It didn't really click with me until, but like I've watched the trailers and I had seen the fight you were talking about, but you mentioned sitcom earlier, and I feel like once you said that, like a light bulb just went off, and you can almost see in like the color scheme and kind of like the pastels and stuff like that, it does have like a very sitcom-y vibe, which I don't know, it's just super interesting to see a villain like M.O.D.O.K go that route.
Yeah, we wanted to kind of just give you the shape almost of a sitcom, and then we wanted to blow it up and subvert it because, there's enough Simpsons and Family Guys and, American Guys, all this stuff. Like, they're all great shows. We didn't want to just repeat it. So we were kind of talking a lot about, like, what are the things that we'd want to do differently, especially because TV's changed since those were created. So, like, one thing, even with M.O.D.O.K's wife, Jody, like, you always see the sitcom mom and she's like, oh, Peter, or whoever, like, you idiot, I forgive you. And you're like, no woman would ever tolerate that bullshit. Like, any of these morons. So, in our pilot, it's that kind of setup, but the wife's like, yeah, we're done. Like, you need to move out. Like, I'm tired of your fucking nonsense. Like, you're a terrible husband. So M.O.D.O.K moves out of his house in the second episode. He moves into like this super shitty studio apartment in like the bad side of town with his robot. So right away he's like, it's like a divorced dad's story. It's not a like, oh, you kids, I forgive you, kind of thing. And the other thing is that a lot of those Fox shows, they were made to be on networks where you have one a week, and you kind of and they were meant to go into syndication. So you kind of tell your story and you wrap it up at the end, right? And then it's like a reset at the next episode. And we didn't want to do that because, like, we all watch very heavily serialized television, and we wanted our characters to like change. We didn't want them to stay the same, So the characters grow and they have arcs over the season, and it's a lot of kind of setting up, paying off. We have a big bad. Like, we wanted to feel like a Marvel show, right? Where you have like a big bad of the season, and there's this big growing thread, and M.O.D.O.K's got to fight that, and he's got to be a different person by the end of the season. Like, he's not going to just always be who he was when we started this. So that was kind of a fun thing, is that we kind of wanted to make you think you're in for a normal sitcom, and then blow it up completely and tell something that feels a little more real. Like, people are messy. They don't forgive you. You don't like fix the problems with your dad over a hug and a lesson learned. You're like, I fucking hate my dad, and it's going to be a long journey before I ever forgive him, So that's kind of what we wanted to do with the show. So I think, people will be surprised at some of the twists and turns that it takes. And also that, like, it is, like you guys, like, it's a ton of jokes. It's super funny. It's super fucked up, but it also has like a lot of heart, I think, to it. Like, there's some real moments in it that I'm as excited about as the comedy and the jokes. Like, it's super absurd and insane. I mean, look who it's about. But at the same time, we wanted to make you care about these characters, so that you're not just like, because to me, then it just gets boring. If it's like joke, reset, kind of thing. And so, I think that's a fun thing. And they've done that, really well on things like Harley Quinn and BoJack, and I think a lot of more recent shows. Yeah,
I just like the idea that M.O.D.O.K, this mass murdering supervillain, even has a wife, and for her to like like that, she obviously put up with a whole lot of this shit to say, oh, I'm done with your, which she called nonsense, and it's like, destroying the world is just nonsense to this woman. What does that say about her, honestly?
Yeah, well, that's like a really fun thing, because you only see her a little bit in the pilot, and it kind of ends with her being like, I want a divorce. So then you're like, how does this relationship work? Like, why would anyone marry him? And we love that, like, that you're asking that. So the whole second episode is him being like, moving his stuff out, and he's trying to plot as a supervillain, like, how do I win my wife back? So he's like, I know, I just need to remind her of this time where we were like really, close and in love, and we met in college. So we had missed this concert, the Third Eye Blind concert. So I'm going to steal this time machine from Shield, and we're going to go back in time, and we'll go to this concert, and it'll bring up these old feelings, and then it's a whole disaster, and they get trapped in the past. But then you get to see them watch their own lives, their younger selves, and you see like them falling in love and having a family, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, I think I get why these people love each other. Because if that doesn't work, you're like, what am I watching? So I love that challenge of throwing an insane idea at you, like, yeah, this very normal, seemingly normal woman is in love with this super villain, but then you have to earn it, And I think it's a really fun story that kind of shows you that. And, she's kind of a little morally and ethically loose as well, where she's like, like, I fell in love with you because you were so driven, because you want to change the world by conquering it, and like, you know. And she actually has kind of a villainous turn in the season because their careers are at different places. Like he runs AIM into the ground, he has to sell it. You know, his career is like tanking. You know, he's even getting demoted at his own company down to like the mailroom. And she's this like mom blogger. And her stuff, she has like a book that comes out, and like she's skyrocketing in fame, and she gets like really kind of seduced by it and starts dating Wonder Man, the Avenger, because he's like a famous actor.
Oh, nice. Wonder Man's in the show. Nice.
Yeah. So, and it's like M.O.D.O.K's biggest nightmare is like he's dating fucking Avenger and Wonder Man. Like you couldn't even date like a better one. Like
Wonder Man. Who's playing Wonder Man?
Nathan Fillion is playing him.
Nice.
That's awesome. He was supposed to play him, or played him kind of in Guardians of the Galaxy, like as a background gag or a cutscene or something. So we just stole James Gunn's casting, and I got his blessing. He said it was okay. And,
nice.
And Nathan is so funny. He's so perfect as Wonder Man. Like you couldn't have gotten anyone else, you know.
So since being like it's a Marvel product, can we expect like, or I don't even, this actually probably sounds spoilery. I'm just so hyped. Are there gonna be like classic Marvel post-credit scenes?
We kind of had written them as that, and then we ended up just putting them at the very end, you know. So we don't have that. Also, it's there's not much to tease when you just like hit next, and then you go to the you're able to binge it, you know.
So the entire season drops at once. It's not like a weekly thing. Gotcha.
Right. Except internationally, it's weekly for reasons I'll never understand. But here in the US, it is all at once.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Do you think there's any characters like that would just work better comedically, like M.O.D.O.K? Like I feel like as soon as someone started to like make him a little humorous, that like made him more popular and just made him a more relatable guy. But are there any other characters you think, oh, if we just made him funny, that character would make more sense? And
yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole group, and we use them in the show, where like I've always loved the dudes who are like the blue collar working class villains, you know, like the Rhino, or you know, they're not gonna like take over the world. They have no interest in that. They're just like, just want to knock over a jewelry store and then like go get a cold beer after, you know. And I love those dudes because a lot of them are like weird like animal people, you know, themed people in like really big loud costumes, and like you can try and make them grim and gritty, but there's a lot of Spider-Man villains too, like his Rogues Gallery, right? Or those guys. And there's a place in the Marvel Universe called the Bar with No Name, which is a supervillain bar, and it pops up all over. I think it was even in the Spider-Man game, and I've always loved it because it's like, you know, sawdust on the ground, you know, jukebox kind of bar where it's like everyone in these silly costumes sitting around like talking about their war wounds and like how much of a piece of shit Spider-Man is. You know, like, so I love those guys. So we did a whole episode where M.O.D.O.K, it's like his first weekend without the kids. So he's at his shitty apartment and he's like, you know, frustrated. He's like, I gotta go do something. I should hang out with people like me, like real big villains. So he tries to go to this lounge for like super villains that's like high end, that's like the Leader and Mr. Sinister, like those guys are there. And they're like, you know, fuck off, like you don't belong here. and he's like, come on, you know, let me in. They're like, all right, you know, steal Captain America's shield and then we'll let you in. And they're just like giving some task to like get rid of him. So the person, the concierge, or the door person is like, hey, you know, usually people who are humiliated go to the Bar with No Name. You should go check that out. So he goes there and he meets all these, you know, characters like Angar the Screamer and Armadillo, you know, like all this fun animal. And, you know, they're just these losers. And he gets this idea that he can use them as like cannon fodder to go steal Captain America's shield. So he'll promise them the heist, but just end up using them as like human shields to break into Avengers Tower. And it's like a whole night out. It feels like Superbad, that episode, kind of like everything goes wrong, you know, like they never even get to the heist because like one, you know, there was this guy Tenpin who was exploding pins, but he sold them to a pawn shop, so they gotta go there first. And then they gotta go deal with like Armadillo's, you know, thinks that another supervillain is sleeping with his wife, so they have to go put out that fire. And like M.O.D.O.K's just getting more and more frustrated, but he's starting to like see himself in these guys. And it's just this fun episode where it's like it's you keep hearing about this heist, but it never happened. It's just like a story about M.O.D.O.K making friends in his 40s and like bonding with his dudes. And then like they even fall asleep on the way to Avengers Tower on the subway, and they end up at like Coney Island and just watch the sunrise. Like he's like, oh, I fucking blew it, and they're like, no, that was like a fun night, man. We got to do all these things. So I love those guys, and like if I could write a spin-off, it would be for just that bar and anyone who walks in, because I think that world of like I put on my costume, I go out, I try and knock over the store, Spider-Man shows up, now I got back problems, like fucking hanging there with webs for 3 hours waiting for the shit to dissolve so I can go home. I love that, where it's just like it's just a job kind of villain. Yeah.
The best part about Spider-Man villains is like they hate him on a personal level because like, I mean, they could probably hear it in his voice, but like at the end of the day, like he's this teenager who's just an asshole while they're fighting. He's like, "What's up, you fat fuck?" And it's like the Rhino. And then so when they're all like, Spider-Man, it's just like a personal level of like hatred for this little shit smart ass kid.
Yeah, he's like mocking them, making quips, and like joking about their weight and stuff. Cause it's like when I'm Spider-Man, I get to be the Peter Parker I never was, and stand up to the bullies and say the things I always want to do. And he's like picking on these like grown men. They're like,
Spider-Man hates boomers.
Yeah, that's a great take. Go pitch that to Marvel. I want to write an anti-boomer Spider-Man story where he's just a prick. And you see it from like the Rhino's point of view.
we had a spin-off idea, didn't you, Anthony? It was the Rhino.
Oh yeah, Rhino and Sandman, but I've never seen it, so Cody would have to back me up on this. The movie Sideways. If
the movie Sideways. Paul Giamatti and Thomas Ann Church, but Rhino and Sandman.
No recasting needed. Yeah,
exactly.
Sandman falls in love. Questions everything. Yeah, that's great. I'd watch the hell out of that.
Oh, I was thinking Spidey hates boomers, but then he like literally gave up his life and marriage for a boomer. So maybe he's overcompensating with Aunt May all the time.
Oh, she's pre-boomer. She's like World
That's
War.
True.
Oh, yeah.
What are you currently reading as far as comic books go?
Way too much. Every X book, but I have been forever. But it's so good now. All the X-Men stuff is the best. I can't get enough of it. The entire line, ever since like the Powers of X, House of X-Men, Powers of 10.
Oh wow, you're like a real comic book dude.
Oh yeah, I'm reading about 12 comics a week, new stuff. I would say.
Nice.
Yeah. And then let's see, a Hulk. I'm loving the Al Ewing Hulk stuff is incredible.
Yeah, I think that's about to end at issue 50, right?
Is that Immortal Hulk or no?
Yeah,
Immortal Hulk is so
love
good.
That series. Yeah,
really. In DC, I've been reading. I like a lot of the new stuff they've kind of launched out of the Future State stuff, like
same.
Teen Titans Academy, Suicide Squad. I've been liking.
Yeah,
Batman's a blast. Even Flash, I was kind of off of for a little bit. Kind of brought me back to Flash. And then outside of that, let's see some indie books. Money Shot is like one of my favorite books. Have you guys read that?
I read like the first like 4 or 5 issues. That's a very interesting book.
Oh, it's so good. It's so funny, and it's such a great concept. Just to give you a quick pitch of the concept. So it's set in a like very, very near future, very similar to the world we're in right now, where like the world just does not give a shit about science anymore. Like everyone just cares about their own nonsense. And aliens show up, this like coalition of aliens are like, we want you to join this intergalactic kind of group, and we'll bring you in and we'll share resources. And of course, like the first person to greet them is the president of the United States, who's like, fuck that, give it all to America. And they're like, oh, we have clearly made a mistake, and like just fly away. And there's this young scientist who is like, oh my God, we just blew it. Like that was the greatest moment, for mankind, and we blew it. And she is like a grad student who's working on this like interplanetary teleportation thing, and she gets it to finally work. And then of course her funding gets cut because again, no one cares about science, like there's no value in it to the world. And she goes home and does the only thing she can, which is masturbate, right? Your dreams are crushed. So she's looking at porn and she's like, man, people are the weirdest shit. Like, this is like, people are like numb, to things like this. And then she's like, oh, wait, I think I have an idea. So she comes up with this idea that she's going to live stream her adventures, like going from planet to planet, trying to kind of find, resources and things that we could use, like sustainable, energy. But to pay for it, she is going to live stream herself and a group of other nerdy scientists having sex with aliens and each other. So they like put themselves in porn star school. So it's like
porn star school.
Yeah. So they teach themselves to be porn stars, and it's this like really sex positive, like female driven book. It sounds so insane. You're like, this could go wrong, right? Like this could just be like,
is it like the Xavier Academy for porn? It sounds nuts.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like her being like, look, we're gonna go explore the universe and pay for it by fucking aliens and each other, and like, because that's what the only thing people will put money into. That's the only way we can practice science and do what we've studied to do. And it
sounds like OnlyFans saves the day, is what you're saying.
It is, yeah. But it's like the characters are so good, and like the relationships, and it really, it's fun and insane, and kind of feels like Futurama or those kinds of shows. And it never feels like dirty in a gross way, like it always like serves the story or the comedy. And it's just one of those things where like on paper, this shouldn't work, but this is brilliant and so well done. So that one you guys should check out. It's so funny. Second Coming is another one I
love Second Coming. Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Old Testament God decides that Jesus is weak after being crucified. And was like, you need to learn something from like a real man. So he sends him back to Earth after, thousands of years to go learn from Superman, essentially. Like it's a superhero who looks like basically Superman. And he moves in, and it's like Jesus and Superman are roommates. And there's all these people kind of conspiring against them. And it's so funny because it's like it was going to be DC, and they got nervous, or I don't know what happened, but it moved publishers. And it's like not, it sounds blasphemous, but it couldn't be like a better, like I'm Jewish. I don't have the best point of view on this, but like to me, this is like the best Jesus I've ever seen. Like he's like a really good dude you want to hang out with. And,
seriously.
And he's talking about how everyone's like used his name for all these terrible things, and like to me it's like the best like love letter to Christianity, but you can see why people might be upset about it.
Have you ever read it's not a comic, but Mark Russell also wrote God is Disappointed in You. Have you heard of that book?
No, let me write that down.
Yes. So he basically rewrites the Bible.
What?
But it's like really sarcastic and still trying to like get you whatever message I guess the Bible was trying to get at people, but it's the same writer, and I could see why like he's so suited to like write like a Jesus like that, because you're right. Like when you read Second Coming, it's not like, I mean, I don't care, but it's not, it doesn't seem offensive because like he's trying to literally learn how to be a good person. I don't see how anyone, like if they actually read it, could misinterpret it as like something blasphemous, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you read it on paper. I mean, it's the same thing with Money Shot, right? You're like, this is insane, or this is absurd, or this is offensive. And then it's all about execution. And if you do it right, it becomes like high art. Like these two books are blowing my mind. And I think it would be, I think a lot of people who claim to be Christians, it would be a good thing to actually read, rethink. But not here to talk religion.
We're here to talk M.O.D.O.K.
Here's talk M.O.D.O.K. Let's see what else. Oh, Stray Dogs. Have you guys read that?
No, damn, man, you're giving me a run for my money. I like to consider myself like an independent connoisseur, but damn,
it's an Image book. It's only 3 issues, I think, so far, and it's drawn like it looks like a Disney animated cartoon.
Oh yeah,
interesting.
And it's written like that until you get to the twist. So it's like all these dogs who live with this guy, and it's a new one who gets brought in, And it's like, this is how things work around here. It feels like the first act of like, let me show you the ropes, kid. You're the new dog in town. And then she smells something of her previous master. And you know how dogs have like short-term memory, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It reminds her that her master was murdered and they're at the home of a serial killer.
Oh.
And it's dogs realizing it's a Disney movie where the dogs realize that their master is a murderer, psychopath, and it becomes a horror book about how did they escape and get out of there. But it looks and is written like a Disney movie, and it's so brilliant. Like I wish I came up with it. It's one of those things where you're like, "Fuck, that's a good idea."
Yeah,
damn it.
Have you ever read? We discussed it on the show, Black Sad. Have you heard of Black Sad?
Yes, that's another one. Like very similar, like done in that style, but it's pure noir. Like it's so good. I need to.
We
there's
love
more.
Black Sad.
I only read one of them. I heard there's like a whole bunch of.
There's 3
trades.
altogether. I didn't find that out until like a few months before we recorded a Black Sad episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's Black Sad, which the original one is just the Black Book. The middle one is like it takes place in New Orleans, and then the last one is Black Sad Amarillo, and it takes place in Texas, like in the Southwest.
Okay, great. So they just kind of change up the locale for him.
Yeah, but man, like that dude's art, Juan Guard, what is it? Juanjo Guardino. Yeah, his art is incredible.
That's beautiful. Yeah, those are fantastic books. Oh, one more indie one, Maniac of Manhattan.
Ooh, I read the first issue. Yes.
Yeah. So that one is. Have you guys all seen like Jason Takes Manhattan?
Yeah.
It's not what you want it to be. 90% of it's on a boat. He's just doing the same thing he always does. And then you get like 10 minutes of him just like punching people's heads off and stuff. Yeah, but like it's like, what if you took a serious approach to Jason Takes Manhattan, and it's about this like Jason kind of serial killer who like does these mass killings and no one can bring him down, and he keeps disappearing and popping up, and it's become like just part of living in New York is like, no, we had there's a whole squad that's out to get him. We had another, Jason murder spree today. You might want to take the L train instead, like, and it's about these cops who are like part of this task force trying to bring him down, but it's like done very seriously. And like, and I don't know, I thought it was cool as hell.
Yeah, I mean, cool. Just like try to think about like if you're on like a train in the city and it just closed and like you're trapped in there with Jason, you're not getting off. It's like, the next stop's like 10 minutes away. You're fucked. And Jason Takes Manhattan, it's kind of corny, but like you're saying in the comic, it's just like terrifying.
Are we talking about Jason like the
40s? Yeah.
Oh, he's so slow, man. I would outrun him.
If you were in a subway car trapped.
Yeah. Sometimes New York, it's pretty busy. It's hard to get away from people.
Yeah, it can get stuck in the tunnel.
Yeah, slow foot
traffic.
It
always gets stuck. Yeah, there's always train delays. When are there not train delays? You LA people.
What about you guys? What are you excited about these days?
What did I pick up yesterday?
I have so many.
I just rebought Long Halloween because I couldn't find my copy. We all just bought Rick Remender's Scumbag.
I've read a few of those.
That was hilarious. I've been really into this publishing company called TKO that I personally just like came upon, and they're putting out some really good stuff.
Yeah, I've had.
Was that one Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah was a good one. Yeah, TKO just did a book called Sarah about Soviet. World War II, like a female sniper squadron.
Oh, cool. That sounds awesome.
It was really cool. And the art is by the same artist. I forget their name, but she did Velvet. Did you read Velvet?
Yes. That was Brubaker, right? Or am I thinking of a different book?
Oh shit! Did Brubaker draw Velvet? Maybe I'm thinking.
Or right? I mean,
no.
write it.
He wrote it. Yeah, he wrote. Yeah, he wrote Velvet. And this artist's name I forget it, but he drew Velvet. It's great. Velvet was cool too, actually. I enjoyed Velvet a lot.
I just the first issue is only out, but it's called The Silver Coin.
Yes, I read that. That was really cool.
I really like that. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like Ice Cream Man-ish, where I guess it's more connected to the coin, where each issue is going to be like a different writer, a different story involving it.
Yeah, it's like that anthology horror. I kind of really like that. Like I remember for a while. I'm like, I want a long form story. And now I kind of really love, like, if you can do a good one and done story, in one issue where you give me a whole complete story, I get invested in the characters, and and you have this fun twist to it, then I'm in. And I think they've lined up some crazy talent for that book too.
Yeah, I think the next issue is Kelly Thompson. She's great.
Yeah.
I like I think it just ended Crossover. That was kind of interesting, by Donny Cates. That was just I guess he has all these like independent books that he's worked on that I've never really read, but he combined them into one thing. That's pretty cool. It like made me search out more of his writing.
Yeah, he got to use a whole bunch of like image characters too.
Yep.
Like
in the last Hey Girl, stuff like that. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot more back issue reading too lately. I kind of I didn't grow up with like any comics community. I was like, I had a few friends here and there who read, but no one to really talk to about it. So I finally found some people in my late 30s who are kind of a lot of them kind of work in animation as well. And we are doing a Suicide Squad reread from like the very first appearance in Legends all the way through like the John Ostrander stuff to get ready for the movie. Because that movie, I think, is going to be, I have a feeling it will be one of my favorite superhero movies. Like every piece, every frame looks perfect to me of what I want out of that kind of stuff.
Those little glimpses of Starro they gave us, I can't wait to just see.
So excited for Starro.
Who's the DC character you would like to write for?
Blue Beetle, Booster Gold.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
I would love to see Booster Gold done right, like whether it's animated or live action.
He's a perfect character. Like he is ready for it. He's ready to go. To be adapted, and I think would work great in an animated show. And I love that friendship. That friendship's the best friendship in comics. Like those dudes love each other. I think it's like I can't get enough of it. They're the best. So I've been reading some of that too. Some of the JLI stuff I've been reading, the Justice League International.
Oh, I actually started reading the first like big book, whatever. They have like 2 complete sets. I got like halfway through, I guess like 12 issues or something.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I love that Kevin Maguire art from the 80s. It's so expressive. No one draws like facial reactions and acting like that. That dude's a master at that.
I also love how like almost every issue, like Guy Gardner does something and Batman completely like punks him out every single time.
I like everyone's terrified of Batman in that book. Well, that one punch. I mean, that one punch is one of the greatest comic book moments of all time. Where Gardner's talking all that shit. He's like, "Come on, let's go," and then Batman just is like decks him, and then everyone just laughs their asses off, and people are just walking over Guy, like pointing at him and stuff.
Like he hits him so hard he changes his personality or something.
Yeah, brain damage. That's such a fun run. Like comedy is really hard to do in comics.
Have you ever read The Goon?
The Goon is great. The Goon is fantastic. My other favorite comedy book is The Superior Foes, which obviously touches on what I was talking about earlier, like those shitty D-list villains, who are kind of bumbling idiots. And the way that's drawn, like pacing comedy is really hard to do in comics, and like figuring out how to kind of communicate, because you can't, when you comedy's all about timing, like we'll in the editing room we'll like add a few more frames. Okay, now that joke worked. It's a science that can't even be explained. Like why does holding there or one more second of silence make that funnier when the person speaks? Like it's just something you kind of have to like get an instinct for, and you can't do that right in comics because everyone's going to read it at their own pace and speed. So but I think Steve Lieber, who does that book, is so good at it, where you'll have like those panels that repeat, that kind of like create that pacing where someone's staring at someone and you just you use them a few times, then they speak. Like we looked at that a ton when we were doing M.O.D.O.K, because M.O.D.O.K Head Games isn't necessarily like an all comedy book, but we wanted it to be funny, at times, because he can be such an absurd character. So we were kind of trying to crib from that, when we were like, how do you get this joke to work? And we would look back at Superior Foes.
Nice. Have you read Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, the new one?
That is same artist. Yeah. He's so good. That book was incredible. I gotta find a trade of that.
Yeah,
it was perfect. I want more Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen's so underrated. That dude should have an ongoing. It's such a great character. Just like Superman's best friend who gets into the most insane hijinks and weird, nonsensical sci-fi stories
Yeah.
and just keeps going. You know,
Yep.
like
With
never
a sunny
stops to question.
disposition.
Yeah. It's just Wednesday for him when he's like turning into a giant turtle and, you know, putting a bottle city and whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I was telling these guys about that. I mean, it's so hard to explain because that comic is absolutely insane, but I recommend it to everyone. Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, it's so absurd. And it just moves at like a rocket's pace. We're like, because it's jumping like all over, but by the end, it kind of all comes together.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. Matt Fraction is so good at that.
Yeah, I love Matt Fraction.
Nice. I feel bad because my question is not nearly as serious, but like just because I'm picturing M.O.D.O.K and kids. Are we gonna see a M.O.D.O.K sex scene? How does that work?
You will see the aftermath of a and it was really funny is like we wanted it to be this thing where you're like, you know, that thing where you pan over the floor and you see like the underwear and the jeans, you know, but you see like the hover chair on its side, and then you see him in bed, and getting that to make sense, like what he looks like outside of his hover chair. It was like the people who build the puppets are fantastic at like doing that, but that was the most like noted back and forth, like the head's not big enough, the body's too big, shrink it, and like it doesn't make sense, like it would crush the puppet, like bigger heads, give us bigger heads, like because like what is his anatomy outside of that suit, like what does he look like naked? So that was like the biggest back and forth was like trying to nail the proportions of a naked M.O.D.O.K. We were really coming at it.
It's so serious. Like, I think actually his testicles would be this round then.
Yeah, should his testicles be huge like his head? And these were all serious discussions that were had at Stupid Buddy until we landed on what we thought was the perfect naked M.O.D.O.K.
I'm thinking about it now. Like I never thought of it until just now. Like Hector Hammond from Green Lantern, they're very similar. I didn't realize. Like I just never thought of them together.
Characters.
Yeah, but he just kind of walks around, or he's just always laying there comatose, I guess.
Yeah, he's just kind of in a chair with his head like propped up. You know. I remember. Do you guys remember they did the amalgam stuff? Like after they did DC versus Marvel, they did a thing where like, let's mush our universe together and make more money off of this crossover. Do you guys remember that from the 90s? Right? Like seek this out. It is so weird. It's Marvel and DC publishing a whole bunch of number ones, just as like imagine if we combined our universes. So like Dark Claw is Batman and Wolverine, and like Spider Boy is Spider-Man and Superboy, and
I have that issue.
And there's like JLX, that's like the X-Men and the Justice League. So they did, obviously they're like, okay, well we'll do a M.O.D.O.K Hector Hammond. I can't remember what the name was, but they just mushed the names together. So they are each other's counterpart for sure.
I didn't know Jack Kirby designed M.O.D.O.K either until recently. I mean, that original M.O.D.O.K design is so like that face.
It's unsettling. Yeah, it's creepy. Yeah, it's cool. Like we made sure that Stanley and Jack Kirby's names were on all the scripts. Like those, they created him, and he was like fully formed. You know, like he was perfect. It was like in the 60s, I think he came out, and then you know he's popped up since then. My favorite run with him is referenced a lot is the Mark Gruenwald Captain America run, which Mark Gruenwald basically did what Chris Claremont did. He wrote Captain America for like 10 years straight, I think.
Wow.
From like the 80s into the 90s. And he did the whole thing of like, you know, M.O.D.O.K, AIM turning on M.O.D.O.K and being assassinated. And so we read a lot of that stuff. It's a really underrated run. But you get all these U.S. agent, like all these characters who are being used right now.
Yeah,
you know,
nice.
Battlestar, who was in it, the Power Broker, all that stuff's from Grunwald's run. So like a ton of the Falcon Winter Soldier stuff's from Grunwald, and we pulled a lot too from our show. So that's kind of like a hidden gem that weirdly people don't talk about because it's not like flashy, but it's like good comics, like for 10 years straight. And it has weird stuff like Cap Wolf where he turns into a werewolf.
Cat Wolf.
Yeah, like that's Grunwald. That's some fucking bonkers next level thinking that I can get behind.
I like Cap Wolf. I just like that name.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, I know it's not connected to the MCU, but is like I had originally heard like Hulu was doing like 4 separate shows that connect to something called The Offenders. Is
Mhm.
that still a thing that's happening, or?
The 2 of the shows got canceled, and then and then Hitmonkey is still coming out, and Hitmonkey's really cool. I've gotten to see some of it.
Oh,
And so yeah, they're not doing The Offenders now, which is fine because none of us were really writing towards it. Like there wasn't like you gotta set this up, you gotta do that. Like Marvel is really cool about being like, tell the story you want to tell, and then we'll figure out it later. And then I was up to for running it, so then it was like we do some crazy shit at the end of the M.O.D.O.K. Like it's insane, the finale. So I was like, I just wrote myself into a corner. I'm gonna have to do The Offenders if this ever happens. How am I gonna get M.O.D.O.K. into that? Where we leave him? Yeah, things kind of changed behind the scenes, and a few of those shows went away, so that kind of The Offenders went with it. But no, Hitmonkey's really cool, and it was fun in that like we took kind of like a Lego Batman approach or Spider-Verse, where like we were saying earlier, like Grant Morrison's thing, like it all counts. So we pull from everything. So ours is more satirical. Like we're not limited to like it has to make sense in the MCU. Like we pull from the video games, mostly the comics, and there's MCU stuff like in it, but it's that like we'll grab from here and there and kind of make our own thing. And a really fun thing that came out of that was when I was at Marvel in New York, there is a person whose like job it is to like keep track of the multiverse on a spreadsheet.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, like every like universe, like 616 is the main one, and there's like Age of Apocalypse or whatever. Like everyone has like a designated number, or like the Spider-Man video game is its own number. So I got to pick the number. I got to pick my son's birthday. Awesome. We're 12/26 in the official multiverse of the Marvel universe, which was really cool. That like it felt real. Like we count. We're our own world.
This is canon.
Yeah, canon, bitch. You can't take it. So that was kind of a neat thing, But who knows? Like, look, if Doctor Strange wants to open a portal to us in the multiverse of madness, I'm not going to say no.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
that'd be so cool.
I have no idea. They don't tell me anything about any of the shows or movies, so I'm not giving you any spoilers. I'm clueless as you guys.
Okay.
That's cool though. You still get to experience it.
Yeah. It was kind of like, even when I was consulting on the other shows like Dazzler and Tigra and Howard the Duck, and I was kind of like, this is gonna be a bummer. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, I don't get to watch this as like a fan. Same thing with Hitmonkey. Like, I know the whole season. I want to just watch it. So,
I want to see Howard the Duck. I read a few of his comics when Max did his run. And have you ever read any of them?
Yeah, the Marvel Max ones.
Yeah, the Marvel Max ones.
Yeah,
it's pretty hardcore. They were like strippers, like big. I remember just big rat strippers with like nipples hanging out, and Howard's like this drunk man just going to like brothels and whatnot. It was insane.
Yeah. People forget Howard the Duck was like one of the biggest Marvel characters of the 70s. Like it was like him, Spider-Man, Hulk, and like Conan were like the best sellers. Like Howard the Duck was like an A-list character, like huge. I'm not even joking. Like huge character. Book was on fire. And then George Lucas decides he wants to make a movie about him.
Oh God! Yeah.
And then that Marvel couldn't even publish them after that. Like they couldn't wash that stink off of that movie until years later. And I think Guardians helped bring him back a little bit. And then they did the series. Chip Zdarsky, I think, did it recently. It was great. But people forget, like, that was one of their like crown jewels of the 70s. He was outselling Howard Duck's outselling X-Men. Maybe not. X-Men probably rising in popularity in the 70s, but he's probably outselling Iron Man in the 70s. Like people forget that character was huge, and I think it's like a funny thing. But no, that show was great, and I got to read the really funny scripts. And Dave Willis, who did Aqua Teen, was running it. So like I was nerding out. I got to even be in a room with and it was so funny. Like we were about to have a table read, and I don't think I knew who he was. I think I just met him, but I didn't put like two and two together that he's Aqua Teen guy. He's like, hey, if you need anyone to do like some extra voices, I can do it. And I was like, okay, buddy, I think we're good. You know, and then I was like, wait, Dave Willis? Oh, he's the fucking voice of Meatwad. Like I just told the voice of Meatwad to be like, yeah, you can fuck off. And Dave and I are good friends now, and I bring that up all the time to him. Like, I can't believe I like didn't take you up on that. You know, like I used to wear a Meatwad shirt in college. Like I'm like your biggest fan. So that's been like a fun thing, is getting to like meet guys like that and get to work with them, and you know, like just nerd out over, you know, stuff you grew up with.
That's awesome. What's one of your all-time favorite like comic books or comic runs?
I love well, I'm a big X-Men guy, but I loved the Peter David like early 90s stuff where it was X Factor, where it was like Multiple Man and Strong Guy and Havoc and Polaris. It was like right around when Jim Lee X-Men stuff was happening. It's called Mutant Genesis, right? Where they changed all the artists and writers on every book. And so it was Larry Stroman was doing the art and Peter David was writing it. And it was definitely like the comedy book of the X-Men, you know, world. It was really funny. And it was like their government agent, their government mutant team, you know, and they have to be celebrities and they don't know how to do it. And it took a lot of like D-list X-Men or B-list X-Men that I always thought had like potential. And then it's like, yes, these are actually amazing characters.
Nice.
So it made like Multiple Man one of my all-time favorites.
Love
and
Multiple
then
Man, yeah.
He's so good. But like that's where he's, you know, like without that, he's nothing, you know. Awesome. and so that run like kind of defined him. And then I went back when I was a kid. The New Mutants covers, like the Bill Sienkiewicz ones, just terrified me. Like I avoided them. I knew New Mutants from like X-Force, but I didn't ever read the original series. And then I went back and I read all of them, and they were like, "Oh, this is my favorite run. Like I love this, especially the Bill Sienkiewicz stuff, the Demon Bear stuff, which the movie is based on, but doesn't really do a good job adapting. I would go back and read it. It's like 3 issues, but it's like his painting and his style is just next level. Like it's different than anything else you'll ever see. And I love those characters like Cannonball and Mirage are like 2 of my favorite characters. So that's a run I go back to a lot, is just go read old New Mutants.
I didn't know right now until you just pronounced his name. I know who the artist you're talking about. I didn't know that's how it's pronounced though.
No,
in my head, I always pronounced it Cienzawick.
Yeah, it's like there's so many people because you're like, oh, I guess this is how it is. This is how I'll just say it and learn it, and then it's like really hard to unlearn too. Like Fabian,
yeah, that's crazy. I've never heard it pronounced until right now. Oh, okay.
Yeah, cool. Sienkiewicz. But then I've heard other people pronounce it. I think it is Sienkiewicz. I've heard that, and I met him, and that's what I said to him. So yeah, it's a weird thing where you just keep reading people's names, but then you never hear it aloud, and then like, especially when you read it as a kid, and you're like, okay, this is how this is.
Yeah, I mean, I follow him on Instagram, and I still don't know how to pronounce it. I was like, oh, Bill Cienzawick is what I told myself.
Yeah.
Weren't we talking about Mark Miller recently? And I thought like I heard someone pronounce it Millar.
Millar, right? Is that the right way?
I don't know. We don't know. We don't.
I thought it was Miller. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I always read it as Miller, but then I've heard people say Millar, so I really never.
I think it is Millar.
Oh,
but what the fuck do I know?
Well, that's awesome, man.
Sorry, I had one more question, if you don't mind. I was gonna.
Yeah,
Cody, we were talking about before. Are you like a big hip hop fan by any chance?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Because I had seen you had posted a picture of like your newest M.O.D.O.K, but there was like a Biggie Smalls M.O.D.O.K. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. So that was an artist who I reached out. I saw he just put that up, and I was like, "Are you selling these?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. You know, how many do you want?" And I was like, 3. So I bought them. I gave one to Stupid Buddy, and I think I gave one to Marvel. But I was like, this is like mixing my two favorite things. Like this is all going on
Nice.
display prominently in my house. Especially 90s hip hop. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
it was like tailor made for me. I was so pumped to get it.
That's sick.
Nice.
Well, shit. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, man. That
Yeah,
was really
seriously.
cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been a
Yeah.
blast.
This was so fun. Thank you for making me dig out my vape pen, and now I'm gonna go have some more dad time to myself before I have to go hang out with my kids.
Really looking forward to M.O.D.O.K, which
Comes out tomorrow. It'll
comes
be
out
on Hulu.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Every episode. I'm going to be binging it. I hope you guys are too. And also pick up M.O.D.O.K head games. You could go to your local shop and pick it up. There's not a trade out yet, but
The trade comes out in early July, and
nice.
the first 2 issues are up on Marvel Unlimited. Maybe the third one will be by the time this airs, but you can
nice.
start reading it there too if you're looking for it.
Nice. Well, shit. Thank you so much for coming on, Jordan Blum. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. This
Thank
was a
you.
blast.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
we'd love to have you on again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jacob H.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.